Good morning. Today is Thursday, November 16th, 2023. In this week's Torah portion, Yitzchak Isaac wants to give a bracha, a blessing to his firstborn, who is Esav. It turns out that through deceit, the blessing goes to Yaakov, to Jacob, and not to Esav. That seems pretty clear from the text of the Torah. We all know that that's the narrative. But let me suggest to you, based on the writing of Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, it's not so simple. Let's start here by way of introduction. We know that the Torah that we have comes to us in two parts. There is a Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah, and Torah Shebal Peh, the oral Torah. The Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah, is the 5 books of Moses. God dictated the words of the written Torah, the 5 books of Moses, to Moshe. Moshe wrote it down word for word, no changes whatsoever. And we have that written word. By the time Moshe died, the entire 5 books of Moshe were completed, exactly the same that we have today in every single Torah scroll. That's Torah Shebiksav. Torah Shebal Peh is what God explained to Moshe as the meaning and the details behind all the written words. Because as we look at the written words of the Torah, they're very, very brief. There's a lot, I would say most things, are not explained. What is work on Shabbos? We know not to do work on Shabbos, that's written in the Torah. But what is the definition of work? And so many other examples. So what God did is God said, Moshe, I want you to write down these words in the written Torah. Now, I want to explain to you what I mean, and I want to enlarge on this subject, and that's the oral Torah, the oral law. So we have the Torah in 2 parts, written and oral. Now, over time, we know that the oral law, which is being taught teacher to student, orally, nothing written down, after many, many centuries, there started to be disagreements, disputes about what exactly was the correct opinion. And in the Talmud, it's filled with differences of opinion, disputes about exactly what is the oral law. Okay, we have a system to be able to arrive at what is the practical conclusion, but certainly by the time we come to the Talmud, and as time goes forward, the oral law is less clear. The written law is exactly the same. Open any Chumash, open any Torah scroll, anywhere throughout all of history, it's exactly the same. But the oral law is not so clear. There's discussion. It's not exactly presented in a very simple, clarified manner. So we have a 2-part Torah, written law and oral law. But those 2 terms, written law and oral law, develop a metaphoric meaning. They're those parts of Jewish life that are clear-cut, straightforward. We know what to do. And then there are those parts of Jewish life that it's not so clear. It's not so certain. This doesn't apply only to Jewish life. It applies to every single aspect of life. It applies to Torah wisdom. This is similar to what our sages teach us, that in the Torah, the written Torah, a Torah scroll, there are letters and there are spaces between the letters. Of course, the letters are holy, we understand, because the letters make up the words that we can read and understand. But our sages tell us that the spaces between the letters are also holy. Just like when a person is speaking, there are words and there are silences. Sometimes, often, the silences are even more pregnant with meaning than the words. The silences convey the oral law aspect of what I'm saying. There are words. You could have a transcript. But when I'm speaking, I'm really conveying much more than that with my tone, with my facial expression, with my gestures, with my silences. There is so much more that is communicated than just the words themselves. So in any communication, there are the words, and I'm understanding this in the widest possible meaning, what is clear, what is written, what I can see, what is certain. And then there's all that is not so clear, all that has to be, that is implied, that has to be understood, and maybe it's not so clear. You know, you try to read someone's mood, you could sometimes make a mistake. You might think they're having one emotion, they may be having a different emotion. It's not so clear. The Torah tells us, Vayihi ki zaken Yitzchak, and it happened, it came about when Yitzchak grew old, Vatichena einav mera'os, his eyes were no longer able to see. Vayikra as Esav beno hagadol, he called Esav, his older son. Remember, Yaakov and Esav were twins. Esav came first. Vayomer elav beni, and he said to his son Esav, my son, Vayomer elav hineni, and Esav said to him, here I am. What can I do for you? Whatever you want. Vayomer, and Yitzchak said to his son, Hine nazakanti, I have become old. Lo yadati yom mosi, I don't know the day of my death. I don't know how much longer I have in this world. Vi'ata, now, here's what I want you to do. Sana kelecha, take your tools, telyecha v'kashtecha, your bow, your arrow, v'tzei hasadeh, and go out into the field, v'tsuda litzayid, and hunt for me food, va'aseh li matamim kasher ahavti, and make for me a meal. You know the way I love it. Ve'hevi'le v'ochela, bring it to me, and I will eat it. Bavor tevorechecha nafshi terem amus, because I want to bless you before I die. Okay, we know the rest of the story. Yaakov comes, disguises himself as Esav, and Yaakov takes the bracha, the blessing. Yitzchak blesses Yaakov. What was the bracha that Esav received? What do you mean? The bracha went to Yaakov. What's the bracha that Esav received? So please listen carefully. When I say to my child, come here, my child, so that I can bless you. At that moment, I have already blessed them. When I then say the words of whatever the blessing is, Yevarechecha Hashem Yishmerecha, God should bless you and protect you, those are the actual words that I use. That is the Torah shebiksav. That's the written aspect of my blessing, the words that I actually say. But when I simply say the words, come so that I can bless you, that is the oral law level of the blessing. I am expressing at that moment my feeling, not yet verbalized, my feeling of love for you, my feeling of closeness for you, my feeling of generosity to want to give you something. I haven't said anything to you yet, but I have expressed what is much deeper than just words. When I say the words, Yivarecha Hashem Yishmerecha, God should bless you and protect you, that's beautiful. That's the Torah shebiksav. That's the written law. Those are the words that I say. But when I say to my child, come so that I can bless you, that's infinite. That's beyond words. deeper than words, before words. That's the Torah Shebaal Peh. That's the oral law version. So when Yitzchak said to Esav these words, prepare this meal for me and bring it to me, ba'avur tivarechecha nafshi, so that I may bless you. At that moment, Yitzchak blessed Esav. That was the blessing, and that blessing was not taken away. That blessing is for all time. The words that Yitzchak was going to say to Esav, yes, those words, the written law aspect of the bracha, that went to Yaakov. But the Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral law aspect to the blessing, that was given to Esav, and that was never taken away. In every area of life, there is a Torah Shebiksav and a Torah Shebaal Peh. There's a written law and an oral law. There's an aspect that is clear-cut, that is straightforward, that is certain, and then there's an aspect that is implied, that can be understood, but it's not as certain, it's not as definite. Especially when we bless our children, we should be mindful of both layers. We should be mindful of the words that we say, but we should always understand that even more important than the words we say is the Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral aspect, the mood, the body language, the silences, the embrace. It expresses so much more than the words itself. And let's remember that for every child, a parent has a bracha. A parent has a blessing to give. For every child. A child can be like Yaakov, and a child can be like Esav. For every child, a parent has a blessing. And likewise, this is a necessary quality for prayer. For prayer too, there is Torah Shebiksav, the words that we say. We may be reading from the Siddur, the prayer book, but there's also Torah Shebaal Peh. What our heart is saying, what our tears are saying, what the silences between the words are saying, what our emotions are saying. And we must always remember that the words we say are just the beginning. There must be so much more. The Torah Shebaal Peh, everything that goes unverbalized. My friends, I want to wish you a good day, and I look forward to seeing you all soon in person.